Harvey had written in a memo at one point when he was running the Executive Action Program that he wanted to use Corsicans.
Yeah, wanted to use what?
Corsicans.
Yeah.
As hitmen. Do you think it's possible that when he was in Rome that he might have recruited a Corsican assassin to kill Kennedy?
Yes. It is possible. I mean, it's one thing to set yourself up in splendid isolation, and it's another thing to use that isolation as a tool,
right,
so that you're not an immediate suspect in the case of a capital crime.
Right, right, because he was in Rome.
Is that understandable?
Yeah, very,
okay.
Very. My understanding is that Harvey had a very severe clash with Bobby Kennedy around the time of the missile crisis, and that Kennedy basically
I think it was earlier than that.
guy.
And he posted an old slogan somewhere in the agency premises that said, the tree of liberty must be nourished by the blood of patriots. And this incensed Bobby Kennedy. And they clashed on that particular point.
Let me ask you,
sure.
John F. Kennedy's assassination.
Yep.
Who did that?
It was done by William Harvey, who was the head of the CIA's assassination unit at that time. David Morales was directly involved in it. He likewise is the gentleman who killed Che Guevara down in Bolivia in '67, where they put him up against a firing wall and killed him and shot and killed him. Morales was part of that. I believe that because I saw, heard, and read a confession from E. Howard Hunt on a deathbed to his son. And when he confessed, it was not a confession of remorse. It was a confession of pride. He wanted the world to know that we helped you out. We killed John Kennedy, this communist sympathizer.
Everything was extremely tense. And suddenly it was discovered that Harvey had sent a team of people into Cuba. And the Kennedys were very concerned that this crisis might explode into nuclear war. And Robert Kennedy particularly was in a rage when he heard that this loose cannon had added a further element of unpredictability to the situation.
Harvey hated the Kennedys. After the Cuban Missile Crisis, he had a confrontation with Bobby Kennedy that virtually ended his career, exiling him to an intelligence station in Rome.
We had a terrible experience with the ones that were handling it at the time of the missile crisis. They were going to send 60 people into Cuba right during the missile crisis. Nobody knew what they were doing, and we pinned it down to the fellow who was supposed to be in charge, and he said we planned it because the military wanted it done, and I asked the military and they never heard of it.
Oh my God.
I believe he was killed because he already had detente. It's come out now through a book called JFK and the Unspeakable. It was discovered in the Vatican. Kennedy and Khrushchev were back-channel communicating that their governments didn't even know it. And both of them had agreed they were going to end the Cold War by '65. Imagine what the world would be. And what happened? Kennedy was killed. They were doing it through Pope John. He died of cancer. And Khrushchev a coup d'etat happened in Russia. And Khrushchev was taken out of office because there were people that wanted the Cold War. And what did we get substantially? 20 more years of it. We had actually been in there since the '50s with advisors, and President Kennedy had even raised that number of advisors, but then he took a turn the other way before he was killed. Kennedy had ordered our first 1,000 out by December of '63, and he said we'd be completely out of Vietnam by the time he was reelected and serving in '65. So there would not have been a Vietnam War had John F. Kennedy lived. But unfortunately, John F. Kennedy was taken out. He was killed. Now, that's another matter on its own of who did that, but you notice that as soon as Kennedy was killed, the Vietnam policy reversed itself. Lyndon Johnson then sent more troops in, and of course, we'll discuss it later, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which is what put our combat troops on the ground.
Alors, Johnson avait une raison particulière d'assassiner Kennedy, c'est qu'une enquête était en cours sur les meurtres qui jalonnent le parcours politique de Johnson et qui voient les gens qui lui empêchent d'accéder au pouvoir disparaître. Et Wallace est impliqué là-dedans. On retrouvera les empreintes de Wallace à l'emplacement où on prétendra qu'Oswald a tiré.
When he was done, he had a 34-point match. And when you mention that in criminal circles to an investigator, how confident would you feel with a 34-point match? Oh, that's a slam dunk. It can't miss. It doesn't get any better than that. You give me a 34-point match on any case in the United States, I'll take it to court and win.
The inked and the latent prints are made by the same finger. And the other evidence that I've been presented with was Malcolm Wallace's left little finger, without a reasonable doubt.
That's one thing about the hearing. I want to correct what I stated before. If he was vice president, remember I said he was vice president? Yes, I did when I mentioned about Adlai Stevens. If he was vice president, there would never have been an assassination of our beloved President Kennedy. Would you explain it, Greg? Well, the answer is the man in office now.
Well, I bet you that President Johnson is going to be real pleased when he finds that now they're calling me the #1 bomber. And George Christian said, "Oh, don't be too sure." He said, "You know, LBJ, he never likes to be #2.
He was so angry. He had a violent temper when he was upset.
Well, let's use the exact words that he said to you. What did he say to you?
He grabbed me by the arm and he had this deep voice. And he said, "After tomorrow, those SOBs will never embarrass me again. That's no threat. That's a promise." And it startled me, really.
Jesse Ventura is with the son of CIA operative E. Howard Hunt, about to hear Hunt's deathbed confession of his role in the JFK murder conspiracy.
He admitted what to you? Exactly.
He admitted that the code name for the operation to assassinate President Kennedy was called the Big Event, and he was proud of it.
How is one proud of that? I mean, they really felt that determined that Kennedy was so bad for the country?
Well, not for the country, for the interests. Operation 40 took people out. That was their job. That was their mission. And it was the same bunch of guys that were trying to assassinate Castro. David Morales, Frank Sturgis, who would have done anything to avenge the failure at the Bay of Pigs.
Sturgis and Morales and people of that ilk stayed in apartment houses during the preparations for the big event. Their addresses were very subject to change. I was a bench warmer on it. We backtracked the chain of command during the run-up for the big event.
There it was, all spelled out. E. Howard Hunt admitting a plot. Let's go beyond Kennedy and let's go to Watergate. What were they there to find when they burglarized this place?
My father told me that that there was a safe that they were to get into, and that safe was evidence linking President Nixon to Operation 40.
Those notebooks in the safe, have you ever seen those notebooks since the break-in?
No, sir. The information that was in that safe, would that have also led to Kennedy?
It very much would have led to Kennedy.
Do you have any idea why those notebooks disappeared? What was in them that caused them to be that sensitive?
These guys were an intact, ready-to-go group of assassins. They were sent worldwide to eliminate foreign leaders, diplomats, anybody that was unfriendly to the United States government.
And at that time, many people believed Kennedy was unfavorable to the United States government.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So all they would have had to do was take this Operation 40 and send it to Dallas.
And just point it in that direction. These guys were queued up and ready to go. They were locked, loaded, and ready to rumble.
The tapes added one more element. Another future president pulled into the plot. First Richard Nixon, then Gerald Ford, then George H.W. Bush. Now
LBJ. He, in my opinion, had an almost maniacal urge to become president. He regarded JFK as an obstacle to achieving that.
Lyndon Baines Johnson, the vice president who became president. Now, this is the person that my dad implicated in the plot directly.
Now, were you familiar with Jack Ruby?
Yes, I knew Jack Ruby.
Had you ever had a drink with him?
Yes, on several occasions.
How did you become familiar with him?
Well, he owned the club next door, and everybody knew everybody. We'd just go back and forth between clubs. I just became acquainted with him as the guy that owned the club next door.
You were what, 16 or 17 years old?
16.
And at that time, your employment in the club was limited to what?
It wasn't limited.
You were a singer, weren't you?
Yeah.
Did you participate in the stripping at all?
No, I didn't.
And where was Ruby located?
He was sitting at a table
And was he alone?
No.
And who was with him at the table?
To the best of my memory, there was a man and Jada, a stripper.
Now you say the word Jada.
Jada, how long did you know Jack Ruby?
I knew Jack Ruby for approximately 4, 5, 6 months.
In what relationship?
I was employed as the feature at the Carousel Club.
What kind of a man was he?
Jack Ruby was a fanatic. He was a very nervous man, a very violent man. He would cause hassles and harassments and always running around, very energetic.
Would you say he had a violent streak in him?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Yes, he would get carried away by something and lose all rational thinking. He would just go off, zoom, and just, he had to prove something. He had to be somebody.
Approximately how long before the assassination did this take place?
About 2 weeks.
All right.
To the best of my memory, 2 weeks, 10 days, 3 weeks, somewhere. It wasn't any more than that.
All right. Jada was at the table with Ruby, and who else was there?
Another man that was introduced to me as Lee Oswald.
Now, who did the introduction?
Jack Ruby.
Was there anybody else at the table? What, if anything, did Ruby say about Oswald, for example, who he was employed by?
Well, whenever he introduced him, he said, "This is Lee Oswald, and he's with the CIA," which didn't register anything with me because I was...
Assassination, and the time of the assassination, where were you?
In Dewey Plaza,
And what were you doing there?
taking pictures.
And what were you wearing? So you were actually taking pictures
Yes.
of Kennedy at the time he was shot?
Yes.
All right. Now, Kennedy was shot on a Friday. Can you tell us what happened to the film and the camera?
Okay, to the best of my memory, I don't know for sure if our club was closed, and they showed me some cards and introduced themselves. I don't remember their names, but they said they were from the FBI and the CIA, and that stuck in my mind because I knew what they were. And they said that they would like to take the film, develop them, view them, and then they would see that I got them back.
And was it ever returned to you?
No, it wasn't.
I'm going to turn this off just for a second.